Daniel Carter never imagined that one ordinary evening would quietly change the direction of his life. The rain outside their Seattle home fell gently, the kind of steady drizzle that usually made the house feel warm and safe. Emma sat beside him on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, laughing at a comedy show neither of them was truly watching. It was a normal moment, simple, peaceful, forgettable. Then Emma suddenly pressed her hand against her chest and struggled to breathe. Within minutes, panic replaced comfort. Daniel rushed her to the hospital, his thoughts racing faster than the car itself. By the time doctors took Emma into emergency care, he felt completely powerless, standing alone under harsh white lights that made everything feel unreal. The doctors later assured him she would recover, but she needed time, monitoring, and rest. Weeks, maybe longer. Daniel nodded as if he understood, but inside he felt lost. Marriage had always meant partnership to him. Emma handled warmth and emotion while he handled responsibility and structure. Without her beside him, everything suddenly felt heavier. He sat for hours in the waiting area, replaying the evening again and again, wondering if he had missed warning signs. That was when Linda Hayes arrived. Emma's mother walked in calmly, her presence steady and composed. She hugged Daniel without hesitation, and for the first time that night, he felt supported instead of alone. Linda spoke confidently with doctors, asked practical questions, and organized details Daniel had been too overwhelmed to consider. When she suggested staying at their house temporarily to help manage things, Daniel agreed immediately. He didn't realize how much that decision would reshape his daily life. Within days, Linda transformed the home. The kitchen stayed clean. Groceries appeared before they ran out, and meals were ready when Daniel returned from work or hospital visits. She handled phone calls from relatives and kept track of Emma's medical updates. Daniel had always thought of himself as responsible. But next to Linda's quiet efficiency, he felt strangely relieved to let someone else take control. The house became calmer, more organized, almost peaceful. I felt different, as if Emma's lively energy had been replaced by careful silence. Every morning, Linda prepared coffee and reminded Daniel to eat breakfast before leaving. At first, he barely noticed the change. His routine revolved around work and hospital visits, repeating the same emotional cycle every day. He would sit beside Emma's bed, smile reassuringly, and tell her everything at home was fine. Emma stayed positive despite her weakness, always asking if he was sleeping enough or managing work well. Daniel reassured her each time, hiding how exhausted he truly felt. Returning home each night was harder than he expected. The house looked perfect, yet it felt incomplete without Emma's laughter. Linda often waited in the kitchen, asking gently about Emma's progress. They began talking. During dinner, sharing updates and small stories meant to keep hope alive. At first, their conversations centered entirely on her childhood memories. Her favorite foods, the way she used to insist on decorating too early for holidays. Daniel enjoyed hearing stories he had never known. It made him feel closer, too. His wife during her absence, as days passed, their conversations naturally widened. Linda asked about Daniel's job, his ambitions, and how he handled stress. No one had asked him those questions in years. He realized how rarely he talked about himself. Marriage and routine had slowly pushed his personal thoughts into the background. Speaking openly felt unfamiliar but comforting. Linda listened carefully, never interrupting, offering thoughtful responses rather than advice. One evening, heavy rain caused a brief power outage. The house fell into darkness, and Linda lit candles around the living room. The soft glow changed the mood completely. Without television or phones, they simply talked. Linda shared funny stories about Emma as a teenager, describing stubborn moments and big dreams that made Daniel laugh harder than he had since the hospital visit. For a short while, the fear and pressure disappeared. He felt light again. The laughter faded. Silence settled between them. It wasn't uncomfortable, just quiet. Daniel suddenly became aware of how easy it felt to sit there talking long after the conversation should have ended. That realization unsettled him. He reminded himself that Linda was his mother-in-law, someone he respected deeply. Yet he couldn't ignore the comfort he felt during those calm moments. Meanwhile, Emma continued, recovering slowly. She called every evening, her voice tired but hopeful. Daniel always spoke warmly, encouraging her and promising that home was waiting for her return. After each call, however, the house felt emptier again. Linda often stayed nearby, asking if Emma sounded stronger. Their shared concern created a natural bond, built entirely on care and responsibility. Daniel began noticing small changes in himself. He lingered longer at the dinner table instead of retreating to bed. He shared stories about his past college, dreams, music he once loved, plans he had quietly abandoned as adult responsibilities grew. Linda listened with genuine interest, reminding him that people sometimes forget parts of themselves while building stable lives. Nothing inappropriate ever happened. Their interactions remained respectful and calm. Yet Daniel sensed an emotional closeness forming, something subtle and difficult to define. It wasn't attraction in a romantic sense, but rather the comfort of being understood during a vulnerable time. Still, the awareness made him uneasy. At the hospital, Emma often thanked him for managing everything so well. Each time she said it, Daniel felt a small wave of guilt. He knew Linda carried much of the responsibility at home. Without her, he might have struggled far more. He wondered if Emma realized how much her mother had stepped into their daily lives. One exhausting afternoon, work pressures and emotional strain finally overwhelmed him. After returning home, Daniel admitted quietly that he felt unsure whether he could keep handling everything. Linda responded gently, reminding him that strength didn't mean facing problems alone. Her reassurance eased something inside him that had been tense for weeks. The moment lasted only seconds, but it left Daniel thoughtful long afterward. He realized how deeply loneliness had affected him. Emma's absence created emotional space he hadn't expected, and Linda's steady presence filled that space naturally. The understanding frightened him not because anything wrong had happened, but because he recognized how easily emotional dependence could grow without intention. That night, Daniel lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He thought about loyalty, marriage, and how complicated human emotions could become during difficult times. He loved Emma deeply, yet he couldn't deny the comfort he felt at home now came, partly from someone else's presence. The realization forced him to confront a truth he had never considered before. Emotional boundaries were not always clear, and good intentions did not automatically prevent confusion. Days continued passing. In the same rhythm, hospital visits, quiet dinners, long conversations, and lingering thoughts, Daniel struggled to understand. The house remained peaceful, almost suspended between worry and healing. He told himself everything would return to normal once Emma came home. But deep down, he sensed change had already begun. Standing alone in the kitchen late one evening, Daniel realized that comfort could slowly reshape emotions without anyone noticing. And as he turned off the lights and headed upstairs, one troubling thought followed him into the darkness. Sometimes the most dangerous lines are not crossed in a single moment, but approached step by step, so gently that no one realizes how close they have come until it is almost too late. Spring arrived the same week Emma Carter finally returned home from the hospital. The air felt lighter, trees outside their Seattle house blooming as if life itself had decided to start again. Daniel stood at the doorway, watching her step slowly, inside holding a small bag while moving carefully under the doctor's instructions. He expected relief to wash away every worry, but instead he felt a strange nervousness he could not explain. Emma smiled warmly, happy to be back, yet everything felt slightly unfamiliar. It's like stepping into a place that looked the same but carried a different atmosphere. recovery was slower than either of them imagined. Emma tired easily and spent much of her time resting. Simple activities required effort, and her cheerful energy had softened into quiet patience. Daniel tried to help with everything, but he often hesitated, unsure whether he was doing too much or too little. Before he could figure things out, Linda naturally guided the household. She reminded Emma about medicine, prepared healthy meals, and organized schedules with calm confidence. Daniel watched from the side, grateful yet oddly disconnected. As if he had lost his role without realizing it, the house ran smoothly. But emotional distance quietly appeared between husband and wife. Their conversations became practical rather than personal. Daniel asked about her health. Emma asked about work. They spoke kindly, yet something deeper remained unspoken. Illness had changed their rhythm, replacing spontaneity with caution. Even laughter felt careful, as though both feared disturbing the fragile peace. Meanwhile, Daniel and Linda continued sharing short conversations during mornings or evenings. Neither planned these moments. They simply happened while Emma rested. They discussed daily responsibilities, memories, and hopes for Emma's full recovery. Daniel noticed how easy it felt to talk to Linda. She understood situations quickly and spoke with calm reassurance that steadied his thoughts. Still, a quiet awareness grew inside him, reminding him to keep emotional distance. One afternoon, while Emma slept upstairs, Linda thanked Daniel sincerely for supporting her daughter during the difficult weeks. Her words surprised him. Had spent so much time doubting himself that hearing appreciation felt unexpected. He admitted he often felt lost and unsure. Linda responded gently, saying that strength often looked like uncertainty carried with patience. Her words stayed with him long after the conversation ended. As days passed, Daniel noticed small signs of change in himself. He became overly aware of silence when Linda left a room, and strangely relieved when Emma felt strong enough to sit beside him longer. These mixed emotions confused him. He began questioning whether his feelings were a genuine connection or simply the result of stress and loneliness. The realization forced him to look inward more honestly than he had in years. Emma focused on healing, did not notice the emotional tension growing quietly around her. She trusted both her husband and her mother completely. Daniel sometimes watched her sleeping peacefully and felt a sharp reminder of why he loved her, the kindness in her nature, the warmth she brought into ordinary life. That love grounded him, helping him understand that temporary emotional comfort could never replace long-term commitment. One evening, Daniel returned from work earlier than usual and found Linda packing her suitcase in the guest room. The sight startled him. He had grown so used to her presence that the idea of her leaving felt sudden. "You're going already?" he asked. Linda smiled softly and explained that Emma was improving and no longer needed constant care. She added that it was important for Daniel and Emma to rebuild their routine together. Her tone carried understanding deeper than her words. Daniel sensed she recognized the emotional complexity neither of them had openly discussed. He thanked her sincerely for everything she had done. There was a brief silence filled with mutual awareness. Linda then spoke carefully, explaining that people sometimes grow close during difficult seasons because they share worry and responsibility. She said such closeness was natural, but should not be confused with something meant to last beyond that moment. Her words were calm, free of judgment, and they brought Daniel unexpected clarity. He realized she was protecting not only her daughter's marriage, but also his own peace of mind. Nothing inappropriate had ever happened between them, yet both understood how emotional dependence could slowly blur boundaries if left unexamined. That understanding created relief rather than embarrassment. The next morning, Linda left quietly. After saying goodbye to Emma, the house felt different immediately, less structured, slightly messy, but more personal. Daniel and Emma were alone again, facing daily life without guidance. At first, simple tasks felt overwhelming. Meals were imperfect, schedules occasionally forgotten, and small misunderstandings led to minor arguments. Yet these challenges forced them to communicate honestly. One night, after a small disagreement about household chores, Emma admitted she felt guilty for being sick and dependent for so long. Daniel confessed he had felt helpless watching her struggle and unsure how to express his fears. The conversation opened emotions both had avoided. Instead of solving everything instantly, they listened carefully, learning how much they had both carried silently. From that evening forward, their relationship slowly regained warmth. They began sharing small routines, again morning coffee together, short walks around the neighborhood, and quiet talks before bed. Emma's strength returned gradually, and with it came her natural laughter. Daniel realized how deeply he had missed that sound. He also learned something important about himself. During Emma's illness, he had searched for stability wherever he could find it. Linda's presence offered comfort during uncertainty, but the experience taught him that emotional loyalty required awareness, not perfection. Feelings could appear unexpectedly, yet choices determine their meaning. Weeks later, Daniel received a postcard from Linda. The message was simple, expressing pride in both of them and wishing continued happiness. He showed it to Emma, who smiled warmly, grateful for her mother's support. There was no tension, only appreciation. Daniel felt thankful that the situation had ended with understanding rather than regret. Life returned to a calmer rhythm. Emma resumed her hobbies. Daniel focused on work with renewed energy. And their home regained its unique personalities, lightly disorganized, but full of life. They learned to check in with each other emotionally, not just practically. Conversations became deeper because they now understood how easily distance could grow when feelings remained unspoken. One evening, during a walk at sunset, Emma held Daniel's hand and said she felt stronger not only physically but emotionally. Daniel agreed. The difficult months had revealed weaknesses in their communication but also strengthened their commitment. They had faced uncertainty and come back with clearer appreciation for each other. Daniel sometimes reflected on that challenging season. He understood that infidelity was not always defined by actions alone. Sometimes it began quietly through emotional reliance formed during vulnerable moments. What mattered most was recognizing the moment when comfort risked becoming distance. From the person who truly shared his life standing in the kitchen months later. Watching Emma laugh while cooking dinner, Daniel felt peaceful. The experience had not broken their marriage. Instead, it had shown them how important intention and honesty were in protecting love. He realized relationships were not sustained by grand gestures but by daily choices, choosing patience, communication, and loyalty again and again. The house no longer felt controlled or fragile. It felt lived in, imperfect, and real. Daniel understood now that hardship had revealed truths they might never have faced otherwise. And as evening light filled the room, he felt grateful that the line he once feared crossing had instead guided him back toward deeper understanding, proving that love sometimes grows strongest after people learn how close they came to losing their way.